I'm resident of Collinwood. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Sades. This is my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to continue our Western movie series for tonight. We're here to discuss Shane, starring Alan Ladd. What a movie! Jack Palance is going to play your biggest heavy in this movie, your gunfighter. A young Jack Palance. What did you think of a young Jack Palance in this movie, Butch?
He was the best part of the film. I loved it. I mean, he was just there's scenes where he's not even doing anything. He's just like sitting there.
Yeah,
Has this creepy thing vibe going on. It's like, man, Jack Palance. I even looked at my wife, and she's like, I looked at her and I said, plays a great villain. I wished he'd played more villains.
yeah. His Batman villain is pretty good until he gets killed.
Until he runs into a bigger fish.
Yeah, I know, right? Jack Palance played a hell of a Dracula as well. Also, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's been some pretty interesting heavies over his career.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy this one the most simply because he is more of a heavy than in this than we did the professionals. He's actually a heavy here. He's a heel. There's no in between. I'm more of a fan of a natural heel who does not pull his punches, and he does not in this film. Alan Ladd's character, I'll give my character a breakdown here shortly, but I want to get your thoughts on Alan Ladd's Shane.
I thought he did a pretty good job. For those of you that don't know, I'm not going to reach up there and get the figure. Alan Ladd visually was the inspiration for the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott. It was originally named Alan Ladd Scott. He does a very restrained performance.
Yeah.
And keeping with his mysterious past, I think that does a good job. I liked him. I just like what he did with the role. I mean, it wasn't, at some points I was kind of like thinking, this guy could play Captain America.
Yeah. Alan Ladd Shane in this movie, and no, I'm not literally saying the name on purpose, I swear to God.
Yes, you are. Spoiler alert, folks, you'll find something out later.
Yeah, my life may be expiring soon. Anyway, no. No, Alan Ladd's character in this movie, he's a gunfighter who doesn't want to gunfight anymore.
Damn.
Very nice, very nice.
Just a video, you can't shoot him.
Yeah, that's right. No, he's a character who doesn't want a gunfight, but who quickly, I would say not the first visit, but after he comes back from the first visit in the town, he's realizing all too really that no matter where you go, you have to pick up that gun and use it. There's going to be trouble wherever you go. It doesn't matter how small the town, how small the farm range. Alan Ladd Shane is a gunfighter who isn't afraid to die, but doesn't want to kill anymore. It's sort of a reverse Batman, where he's been killing for so long that he doesn't want to do it no more.
I had a thought that he was probably in the Civil War. I'm not sure exactly when this film takes place, but I got the impression he might have been a Civil War vet. And like a lot of veterans, he just saw too much. I mean, at first he probably went in as a young man, didn't think much about it. War's over, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good with the gun," the twirling and goes there, and then he doesn't even realize it at first, and it starts eating inside of him. He's got probably got, again, this is all my opinion, people. He probably has some PTSD.
Yeah.
And then whatever happened before this film, he's like, I've had enough. It's time to change. I got what was it they said in the Avengers? Got too much red in my ledger.
Yeah, it's a character, again, Alan Ladd does a great job of concealing Shane's past. Alan Ladd would also play another mysterious figure called Johnny Guitar, another interesting Western he's in. And with this, he's you don't know much about it. You're left to the interpretation. And I don't disagree with you. I think he was a Civil War veteran. He calls Jack Palance's character, "You're no good Yankee liar," um, before the duel, which is a great line.
Well, and Elisha Cook Jr., they call him a Reb, and so it can't be that far removed. I'd say 20 years or less at least.
Yeah, that sounds about right too with this, because there's land dispute in this as well, and I think that's part of it too. It's not really. It's sort of they're mentioned about the Indians and stuff, and if you watch Far and Away with Tom Cruise, where they were racing for the land, which is an interesting movie, um, it's sort of a whoever like claimed the land first. I don't know if that happened here, mind you, and they don't really say. It's just they came in and claimed the land. The man who's the rancher, who does a really good job. I like his character too. Um, you also have a very interesting moment in this movie where Alan Ladd's character is showing young Brandon DeWilde how to shoot, and he's very hesitant at first, but then he realizes, if I don't show this young boy, he's just going to do it himself. And then he does. And again, this is a movie that I complain that it's not on TV a lot, and it wasn't on TV a lot when I was a kid. And it's one of the 10 best westerns you'll watch on a DVD, but isn't shown on TV a lot, even today. You'll see El Dorado, you'll see The Wild Bunch, you'll see Once Upon a Time in the West, and then a lot of the other westerns are covered. But one of the westerns you won't see a lot on TV is this one, Shane. And I think it's because it's really, we've seen John Wayne be billed as the fastest gun fiction, right? Well, Alan Ladd Shane is the fastest draw fictionally. I think that's the repetition of this movie, that he knows how fast and dangerous he is. It's sort of like a power puncher who knows how dangerous he is. Mm-hmm. And a professional fighter knowing how dangerous he is. Well, Shane knows how dangerous he is. And it's the reason he doesn't want to kill nobody no more. But Shane's one of those movies where you'll see a lot of films watch this movie, and it gives the symmetry. Hey, yes, you're not necessarily running from what you are, but you don't want to be that no more. Well, no matter where you go, you're going to have to put on your spurs and that gun belt and use it.
Yeah, especially if you have his kind of ability. I mean, it's not like you or me working somewhere 20 years, quitting and going and getting another job, and it finally, that's not it. I mean, this, like you said, if he's not the fastest, he's definitely in the top five. And it's it's kind of almost one of those. What's the saying? You live long enough to become the villain of your own story. I think he's almost at that point, and that's part of the reason he makes that change. Something I wanted to, I don't know if you noticed, but I did, when he's teaching Joey how to shoot, when he shoots the gun, that sound, that is the loudest shot in the whole movie.
Yep.
And I was reading they shot a gun into a bucket to make it so loud, and that's on purpose to show Joey and startle the fans. But it's like, or kind of a reoccurring theme with this and a few other movies. Thinking the shoot is there at the end with Ron Howard. If you pick this up, and not just to defend yourself, not to shoot a wolf or whatever. When you pick this gun up, you're starting down a path, and like you said, he doesn't want to, but somebody else is going to show him. So Shane is at least in this film during this film is a pretty decent guy, and he wants to do the right thing and teach the kid how to do it.
It's sort of we also reviewed Warlock on here. Blaisdell's character is sort of a mirror of Shane a bit, but he's gone so far for so long, and so is his partner. Now in this, Shane doesn't have a partner. But he's seen so much killing and done so much, he doesn't want to do it no more. And he sees this family. I don't, as much as I love Alan Ladd's performance, I don't think he has a thing for the farmer's wife. I think he just wants to be somewhere where he doesn't have to pick up his gun.
But I believe she sure has a thing for him. I mean,
yeah.
There's several scenes where it's obvious, it's not just, oh, thank you. It's more like, hey, big boy. At the very least, yeah. I'm not sure if he does, but she definitely does for him. And I mean, that's okay. Van Heflin, who plays her husband, Joe, there's Joe and Joey, just so everybody clears up the pa and the son. He's not a small fellow. He's kind of bulky. He's kind of tall. But you can tell she looks at Shane much like the wife his sister-in-law does at John Wayne in The Searchers. There's that look where you're like, something's going on here.
Yeah. How underrated is Van Heflin as an actor?
I think he's pretty darn. The problem is his specialty, the character he's good at playing, is kind of everyday guy, or maybe everyday villain, as they call it on one of the websites, a card punching villain. He clocks in at 8 and then clocks out at 5 and goes home. I don't think he would ever necessarily win an Oscar, but he's, it's not as bad as, say, Tommy Lee Jones, where, you see Tommy Lee Jones in a film, he's going to, be some sarcastic kind of jerk, but he's really good at what he does. But Van Heflin is, he's a steady, in my mind, he would be what you call a blue collar actor.
Yeah, I think there's some actors who are born in the wrong era. And the reason I say Van Heflin is I more see him as somebody who could have played a Bruce Banner or, to lead into the Hulk, because he's somebody who's he always, when he plays a guy, he's very relaxed. Yes, he'll defend himself when he has to, but he's very mild mannered. And not just in this film, in other films, but in this film especially, because he's a husband. I like the line where he goes, "I gave up my independence years ago when I married this young lady."
It's funny you mentioned the Hulk, because I was thinking he would make a good Punisher.
Yes.
Because the Punisher can, regardless of the way a lot of people like to portray the Punisher, he can't be kill everybody. He's kind of like Batman. He has to plan ahead. He has to stay cool. He can't let his emotions take things over, because he's just a regular guy. Admitted a highly trained regular guy, but still just a regular guy. And the wrong bullet at the wrong time.
But let's give a nod to the real Punisher, the Shadow. I mean, what?
Did you mispronounce oh crap, now I can't even think of his name. The Enforcer.
Well, the Shadow to me is the real Punisher. So,
I read, I'd heard of it and I knew about it before when I first read the Punisher. God, what is his name? Who is the Enforcer?
Oh shit! Oh, the are you meaning the movie or
Mac Bowen?
Yeah.
And through our mutual friend Patrick McRae, he got me reading some of the pulps. And I know I think Mac Bowen came out in like the 60s or early 70s. And I read the first one. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize the Punisher ripped off Mac Bowen this much. Same kind of origin and everything. But yeah, the original Punisher would definitely be the Shadow or even the Spider. I mean, they didn't play around like Bruce and Clark did.
No. while Superman would be debating killing somebody, the Shadow would already have a bullet in him. Yeah, yeah, crazy stuff. I like the line and you with Batman the Batman crossover the shot. You were my biggest inspiration. No shit. Um, so
Now, there's a flip side to that. When Kevin Smith was writing Green Arrow after Green Arrow had died and come back all over Green Arrow. Green Arrow and Batman are doing something, and I forget if they go to the Arrow Cave or something. And finally, Batman looks at Oliver Queen and goes, "God, Arthur, or God, Oliver, did you ever have an original idea?" Because they quickly turned Green Arrow. You know, there was the Arrow car, the Arrow signal, the Arrow cave, the aeroplane. I mean, you know, I'm exaggerating here, but like if it appeared in Batman, like 6 months later, it was in Green Arrow.
well, have you ever
back on track here?
Well, real quick, have you ever read the crossover between the Green Hornet and the Shadow?
No.
You're not missing nothing. It's not great. Great lines, but not a great story. With Shane, to get back on topic, I really like how you have a character who is a heel, but he's also a bit of not quite a what's what I'm looking for. He's an antagonist, but he's also willing to make a deal. And he's not wanting to. He himself, the boss in this movie, isn't wanting to use a gun right away himself. He's not wanting to kill anybody until he feels, as he says, that he's had enough. So he hires an outside gun so the law won't come into play. My only issue with this movie is, and they bring this up in the movie, the law is 100 miles away in either direction. I feel they worry about the law a little too much in this movie. You and I reviewed a movie called Will Penny where there was no law. You had to deal with it yourself. And I feel that's what Shane really is trying to say. Hey, you need to deal with this matter yourself or it's going to deal with you. But them mentioning the law, I'm not saying it hurts this movie. It doesn't. But them bringing up the law a bit, I love you're right. You and Joe are right, by the way. Shout out to Mrs. Rosenbalm. They do mention Shane a lot in this movie, but they also mention the law. They mention the law a good deal in this movie. And it's like, look, the law is 100 miles away. Don't talk about the law no more. The law is on your farm, and his sidearm is not on. Okay?
Or it's above the doorway, and you need to put two shells in it. There's a lot of, you know, I was looking over the names. I think I mentioned this last week. I turned on the TV 20, 30 years ago, and I caught the very last part of this film when Shane's riding into town and the little boy's running after him. And how the hell does the little boy outrun a dog? But that's a whole nother question to ask later. And the whole fight sequence, I saw all of this before I knew what the film was, you know, come back, Shane, come back. So I just kind of avoided it because, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, when you know the ending, there's not a whole lot of interest in finding out what happened. So when you know, literally watching this with you know, for you, with you, whatever you want to call it, this is the first time I've seen this whole film.
Cool.
So I'm watching the credits at the beginning, and I recognize a few names: Elisha Cook Jr., Joe, what's his name, who ends up playing Uncle Joe on Petticoat Junction. Of course, I was thrown by Warren Jack Palance?
Yeah.
Jack Palance. And it was. There's a couple of Ben Johnson in it. Has a rather pivotal role. He disappears for a large section of this film. But he's good. Something I didn't quite understand. The main villain, Ray Riker, Because apparently his brother is the skinny kid skinny guy who goes out to talk to Starrett. Is that how you say their last name?
I believe so.
We're going to say Starrett, and apologies if that's wrong. Now, the skinny guy, I've seen him in a lot of horror movies and a lot of westerns. I don't know his name, but he's a great character actor. He's got a good face. He's got a good voice. He's a character actor that you kind of want to throw in because, yeah, hey, it's that guy. But now, what I didn't understand is Riker is he owns this land that these homesteaders have been on, and apparently now it's their land, but he's trying to run them off because he's got a beef contract.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, he calls in Jack Palance to run them off because he doesn't want the guy at the mercantile store, Garrett, I can't remember their name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mr. Garrett. We're going to say Garrett because that's going to be wrong. I never understood why he had power over Riker. I don't know if I missed that or if it just was never explained.
I gather the beef contract is through Garrett. It's not. To be fair, they don't say that. To be fair, they don't say that who it's through. But I gather because he owns a store, and he seems he's a very legitimate business. By the way, he also owns the bar and the store. That he's the one that our villain has the cattle contract through, which is why he's hesitant to kill Heflin's character, because the store owner, the man he has a contract through, likes him.
But now here's my question, and we see this, and we've seen variations of this in films. Yeah. He hires Jack Palance to come be the Darth Vader, also known as the Dragon in at TV tropes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Garrett, or whatever his name is, sees Jack Palance.
Yeah.
You look at him. He's dressed in black. I mean, I think this is a literal black and white. Well, actually, Palance is black, and Shane's hat is gray, I guess signifying his moral ambiguity, if I'm not reading too much into it. But anyway, it's pretty much black and white here. But, they goad Elisha Cook Jr.'s character into a fight. And I won't say it's funny, but it's kind of funny because Palance's gun is already out and aimed at him, and he's still trying to get it out of the holster.
Yeah.
And he very slowly, you can't see my hand, so I'll bring it up. He starts it. And of course, they shoot and kill him, and it's like, oh, he went after Jack Palance, and he said something to him. And is Mr. Garrett that dumb? Does he not know what's going on? And because we see this in a lot of different movies. Oh, I've got to hire somebody to. Now, admitted, that allows you to have a good actor. In this case, Jack Palance is perfect in that role, so I'm not really complaining that much. But in a logical way, it's like, is the guy that dumb? He can't realize who he's called in.
The luxury of owning this on DVD and watching it enough times, other than hearing the name Shane, is the fact that Mr. Garrett's character, I always gathered, was supposed to pick a side, and he never really does.
No.
That's the one biggest flaw of this movie. Garrett himself, who I do think that one of our main heel has the beef contract through, he doesn't really want to commit to one side or the other. And that sort of puts him in a role of, well, he's not an antagonist, but he's not a protagonist either. He's neither good nor bad. He's just neutral to the situation. Well, it's like, okay, there comes a point in time in this movie, and it's the biggest flaw in Shane. But to be fair, what really draws your attention away from it real quick is the fact you have these heavy heels who are just tired of it. They're just, okay, we're tired. Because I think that's the message too. That's the message too in this movie. They're tired of Mr. Garrett to a degree of being neutral. So they're doing something that he won't catch, they say he won't catch. Really, to be fair, I think Mr. Garrett's just turning a blind eye to a lot of it.
It's the deniability. Yeah, I didn't know what they did. That's that.
Right, because if you're a business, yeah, I don't know what they're like. Look, it's easy for a Western character to play dumb, especially if you're not. Again, the law is 100 miles away, and by the way, Mr. Garrett is making no effort to call said law either, or wire them, or ride to them. That's not happening in this movie. Again, it comes to outside gunmen like Jack Palance's character and like Alan Ladd Shane to sort of settle the matters. And whoever's got the fastest gun, spoiler alert, it's Alan Ladd. He's he's your fastest draw. Now I like the scene at the end where Brennan Dwellis, Shane, watch out, and he shoots and he tell he gets hit by the rifle. Really great camera work. And my favorite, by the way, what's your favorite scene? I have mine.
Oh, favorite scene. It's when the kid gets shot. Oh wait, the kid doesn't get shot. When the kid gets laryngitis. Oh wait, the kid doesn't get laryngitis. In case you're wondering, anybody watching this video, while we're talking about the repetition of the name, that kid, I swear, says Shane about 117 times. Shane, do you want to do this, Shane? Shane, my butt hurts. Will you wipe it for me, Shane? It's like every sin. It's almost like being in the military. Sir, sir, yes, sir. And then my wife watched this movie with me, and she's like, "Oh my God, could they say his name one more time?" And then immediately after that, someone said it. And then the mother started doing it, and it's like, "Oh God, now she's doing it." And then at the end, when he shows up at the bar, I'm like, "Oh God, now Jack Palance is doing it." And then Riker starts doing it. That I'm going to tell you this much, and I'll answer your question. I'm sorry.
No, good.
Honestly, if they could cut out the constant repetition of the word Shane, this movie would move up a whole point on a 1 to 10 scale.
Yeah.
I know this is a classic. I like it. I understand that, and this is what, 1952, 53. This isn't a really deep philosophical film. It's pretty much straightforward, good versus evil. We're still kind of just telling magical stories, if you will. We're not getting into too deep of a thing here. So, and it's not, this is not Citizen Kane. There's not. I'm gonna say it's not. I don't mean it like it's bad writing, but I think a good script doctor could have pepped this movie up just a little bit. And that all being said, probably the shootout is because, and I'm kind of biased. Like I said, I saw that before I ever saw the film. Yeah. So I knew what was going to happen. And even though I knew who was going to win, if it's not the shootout, it's definitely anytime Jack Palance is on screen. Because there's a great scene. Maybe at the shootout or maybe before, and he's kind of hunkered over a table. And I'm not gonna lean that far because you get to see my big white head. But he's kind of hunkered and he's got his hands and he's kind of hunkered over. And honestly, it made me think of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Almost like he's looking at his precious, and it comes across as so damn creepy. And Jack Palance is obviously just having a hell of a good time playing. Wagner, I think his name is. He honestly, this is one of his greatest performances. I'm glad he actually got. He got he was one of the nominees, the Academy Award nominees for this film, wasn't he?
Yes.
And you know what? He deserved it. Now, one of the things I read, it's like, well, apparently Alan Ladd and the woman that plays the mother, they didn't get nominated. I'm like, why should they? Especially the mother. She got on my nerves. And she got on my wife's nerves because especially towards the end, Joe was going into town and going to have it out. And she's like pleading with him. And it's just like, just comes across as so whining. Joe, what about me? Joe, you can't do this. Joe, I kept expecting her to say, you'll be just like them if you go kill Riker. That's about the only thing missing. But Shane, Richard Allen Ladd. I don't know. He like I said, he did a really good restrained performance. But I'm going to go Jack Palance. Anything with Jack Palance or the shootout is my favorite scene. My favorite scene.
I really enjoyed the fight choreography between Ben Johnson and Alan Ladd. They did a really good job with each other. Really underrated scene too in the bar. Ben Johnson does a really good job in antagonizing with his words. Big bar. Oh, it smells like pig in here. Ben Johnson is one of the most underrated Western actors you'll ever see. And by the way, if you've never seen him in Terror Train, he does a hell of a job opposite Jamie Lee Curtis. Great movie, by the way. So with this, that's one of them, and obviously the other is, you're right, Jack Palance does a hell of a job. He deserved his nomination. Alan Ladd does it being Shane. Despite all the repetition we hear, he didn't deserve to be nominated, but he deserves a mention in this podcast of being the character and playing it very, very well, because any other actor could have overplayed it.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you saw my head, but that's what I was getting ready to say. He says more with less in this film.
Yeah,
it's like, well, Joey, I don't think you. I think the boy asks him if he could beat his dad, and he's like, why would I fight your dad?
Yeah.
And he says it just so nonchalantly, but it carries a lot of weight, and he does a very good tightrope act in this film by doing and saying a lot, by not doing and saying a lot.
Alan Ladd is playing the Western version of Superman in this movie in every way. And though he doesn't have a cape or a big S on his chest,
he's here for wrongs.
Right. He does everything. He's here for truth, justice, and I will kill you if I have to. And he doesn't, again, we talked about this, he doesn't want to kill. That's why he's putting down his gun. But you can't put down your gun forever. And Shane is that movie. I mean, that's what it is. And I really love what the antagonists do here to lure it all out. They do a really good job. Yes, Mr. Garrett is a strange character who's looking the other way. Yeah, that's just it. The real antagonist is Mr. Garrett. He deserved a bullet, and no one gave it to him.
Is it just me or Riker, not the skinny brother, but Rufus, I think Rue. Got an odd first name. Is he just a funny looking fella? I mean, he's got that beard, kind of Santa Claus beard, kind of sticking out, and he looks like he hasn't brushed his hair since Washington was president. And I mean, I realize it's the old West, and they're not taking showers every day or whatever, but it's just like, dude.
He's the last representation in this film of what the open range country was wild and like. That's what he's supposed to represent, and it's for his look, not just his demeanor, but his look and demeanor both. And
he's they do old West.
Yeah, and they do a good job having him look like that and act like that. He does a great job selling all that, but his look sells it alone. By the way, I don't know whose idea it was for him to grow the beard and look that wild, but whoever idea it was, great job for you, and great job by the actor pulling it off. What do you, scale 1 to 10, what do you give Shane?
I'm going to get slammed for this. I'm going to give it an 8. I really am taking a point off. Just there's so much not just of Shane, but of everybody's name. And it's like, it would be like, Joel, what do you think about this, Joel? Joel, what do you give this film, Joel? It's like, they're in the same scene. They're talking to each other. Once you've established it, you don't have to keep saying their name. But, I mean, it's a classic. I know it is. I'm not trying to, to poop on anybody's parade. Good film, enjoyable. Just be aware that they say the name Shane a lot. So, I mean, I'll give it a solid 8 or a 4 out of 5.
I give it an 8.5. I'm knocking off more for the Garrett era. I feel they should have had him pick a side. Butch, my buddy Butch, It, we can say names all night long, Butch.
Stop, Joel.
Come back, Butch. No.
So, I didn't know this until this evening when I was reading up on the film. Apparently, there's a big debate if Shane lives or dies at the end of the film. Did you know that?
Yes. Go ahead. You first. What's your thought?
Well, I have two because I have one from my wife and I have one from me.
Yes.
And something to point out: the final scene is Shane. There we go again, riding his horse through the graveyard, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah, it is.
And some people point to that. I think he's okay. He's going to stop and patch himself up. My wife says he went and bled out. Well, she didn't say bled out, but he went and bled out because he's so damn tired of hearing that kid say his name. But I think, all kidding aside, I think there's enough evidence here. If you think he dies, he probably, he could die. If you think he lives, he could live. I mean,
we talked about unanswered questions in movies like John Carpenter's The Thing. This is that. Whether Shane lives or dies is one of the best unanswered questions in Western history, really, because he's such a legendary gunfighter coming in, and he's a legendary gunfighter when he leaves. That being said, I think he does live. Now, I will say, the shot itself, I think what happens is once he gets past the graveyard, he falls off his horse and he realizes, oh shit, I gotta patch myself up. And then he does, and then eventually, now people say, well, he doesn't answer Brandon DeWilde. No offense, I wouldn't answer Brandon DeWilde at this point. Who the hell would?
I'm glad you say that because I found this utterly hilarious. I was reading on TV Tropes. It says Brandon DeWilde, the little boy Joey, was a terror on set. He would jump in the mud when others walked past, make faces at Alan Ladd if the two were playing a tender scene, and wander off when his scene was called. He was egged on by Jean Arthur, who played the mother, who had taken a liking to him. For the final scene, every time Ladd spoke his lines of farewell, DeWilde crossed his eyes and stuck out his tongue. Finally, Ladd called to the boy's father and said, "Make this kid stop or I'll beat him over the head with a brick." DeWilde behaved. And I told my wife that, and she just started laughing. Another, not Brandon DeWilde, but something else. It's right here, too, on one page. I don't know if you know this. You probably do. I don't know how many people will see this video will know. This is based on a book, a very short book. It's 100 pages by a guy named Jack Schaefer. And in 1989, he told Oberlin Alumni Magazine that Shane was supposed to be a dark, deadly person who he hoped would be played by George Raft. He was unhappy with Alan Ladd's casting, referring to him as that runt. For anybody that doesn't know, Alan Ladd is only 5'6".
Yeah.
So I found that kind of interesting.
It sounds like from his interview, it sounds like Shane was supposed to be like a Punisher type character.
No pun intended, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, this is why I wear glasses, and then I take them off. I'm looking down so the light doesn't reflect. All everybody sees is this. But then when I take them off, it's like, where'd everybody go? Joel, you get sent back in time. You're the casting director for this film. Now, one of the trivia things I read said that this was I forget who they were going to have play Shane, but it was going to be William Holden playing Joe Starrett. This film was delayed for like a year, and of course they moved on. And sorry, trivia question or trivia note on the side. Then I'll come back to my question. This movie was delayed for 2 years due to extensive re-editing, according to TV Tropes. Anyway, back to my question. Joel.
Yes, sir.
cast anyone appropriate for that time period as Shane.
Oh, Jesus.
Alan Ladd.
Except Alan Ladd? Oh, my God.
No, you can keep him if you want to.
Here's the thing. I think if you cast, because I've seen Shane enough on TV and owning the DVD, if you cast someone big, they're overplaying this role. No offense to Wayne or Fonda, who we all love and know. I tell you who I would have probably considered for the role, though again, because he's a great actor, would have been Chuck Connors.
Ooh.
Chuck Connors may have pulled off Shane. Because he himself can be a very reserved actor when he wants to be. Now he's played tough guys. I'm not meaning the Rifleman. I'm meaning other roles. The Rifleman was a bit reserved. Connors would have been my go-to for Shane if I had to replace Alan Ladd. Who would you pick?
After reading that, I would be really interested to call in George Raft and have him read for the scene and see what he would do with it. I don't know if I would cast him, but I'd definitely call him in. I would. I don't want to cast somebody else, but I would love to see Chuck Connors play Wagner, the bad guy.
Yeah.
He was Chuck Connors. He's really an interesting fellow. I don't know if you know, he was drafted by all three professional sports teams: the NBA, the MLB, and NFL. I mean, so the man's obviously a good athlete.
Yeah, he was an All-American, I believe.
Big fella. I love there's a couple episodes of The Rifleman where he plays dual roles and he's like playing the bad guy and the good guy. Of course, the double.
Yeah.
He plays a really good bad guy. I think, especially when you're kind of, I don't want to say typecast, but when you're playing, repeatedly playing the good guy, like, can I do something else? It's like every time we bring up Rio Bravo and all those films, when Rio Lobo came around and they called John Wayne up, he said, "Do I finally get to play the drunk?" And it's like, I wish they had let him play the drunk, because I mean he's honestly, you could take John T. Chance and Cole Thornton and whatever the character's name is in Rio Lobo, they're basically the same character. I think it would have been great to let him play the drunk and let him spread his wings a little bit.
We should have got the cast, okay, Wayne, Fonda, and Wayne's character is the sheriff. He's so drunk, he's by a horse stead, and you see someone's hand dunking Wayne's head into the water and then pulling out. He looks up, and it's Henry Fonda.
Imagine the way Henry Fonda looks in Once Upon a Time in the West with those cold blue eyes and a black outfit. I'm looking at a 10-star with a drunk attached to it. Saying that, oh man, that would have been great.
It would have been. Real Lobo is a fun watch. Don't get us wrong, but it's a movie that is really a missed opportunity for Wayne because he did want to play a different part. It's not that John Wayne wasn't afraid to explore. It's just that he didn't get that opportunity really. And he should.
You can even keep the same cast. Yeah. Make John Wayne a bad guy.
Yeah, I think that would have worked. I mean, he knows how to look. If you want to get where he's playing a character that's sort of heelish, go watch The Searchers a bit. I mean, he's sort of almost a heel in that movie. I mean, really, really cold. I mean, who was it? Harry Carey Jr. commented how when him and John Wayne were doing The Searchers, and he's briefly in the movie, he's not in the movie a whole bunch, where how him and John Wayne were great friends and how Wayne had to be so cold to him on scene. But he's right. Like you have to separate business from work when you're on camera.
There's a great line that I've always liked during the filming of the movie Marathon Man with Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman. Apparently, they came in Monday morning to film Dustin Hoffman's torture scene. And Dustin Hoffman tells Laurence Olivier, "Hey, I haven't slept all weekend. You know, I've kept myself awake, and I've done this and I've done that." And Laurence Olivier asked him why, and he's like, "Well, how else?" Dustin Hoffman's like, "How else will I do this scene?" And Olivier looks at him and goes, "Acting, my dear boy." There, I was watching something recently. They were talking about method acting, and I forget. I just got so tired of this person's method acting, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but by the same token, to me, that's got to get old. It's like, I mean, like Joel, get the stick out of your ass. You're acting. Now if you have to go so deep to play this, you need to tell us, and we'll talk to you after the film's finished.
Listen. The only thing I ever played in school was the drunk character. I was typecast.
I was like early Jerusalemite, circa I guess 30 A.D. Going, no, free Barabbas. So
Oh my god! But I think with Shane, they do a really good. The cast is really well put together. Ben Heflin, Alan Ladd, Ben Johnson, Jack Palance, obviously. The casting is really good. I think people could say about Alan Ladd's height, but for a Western actor, he knew how to stand and how to walk and how to posture himself. And you could, if you really want proof of that, don't just go watch this movie. Really go watch Johnny Guitar. Johnny Guitar is that movie where he's not in it a whole lot, but when he is, holy shit, he makes a presence.
You were talking about the fight choreography, between the first fight between Ben Johnson and Alan Ladd, which is really good.
Yeah.
And most of the fight choreography between Alan Ladd and Van Heflin is pretty good. But I noticed Alan Ladd does the very 50s, 60s, round punch, but I noticed it's like his fist is always coming in at an angle, which I get, as opposed to keeping your fist straight, but it kind of, and I guess so he doesn't really hit him or whatnot. But there's times where it's just like, just hit him, quit this. As I think William Shatner once called it, the Star Trek roundhouse. By the time you get your fist, they want to hit you 2 or 3 times.
You know who they needed for choreography on this film? They needed Jill Rosenbaum. That's who they needed.
Just imagine they're saying your name again.
Absolutely.
Choreography.
Yeah. But great movie. It's really fun to watch. I have nothing else to add. Do you, sir? Do you?
I think I got all my points. I just want to make those 2 that I thought were really kind of interesting.
I'm going to end recording here, and I'm going to talk to Butch for a little bit. Buddy, this was a lot of fun. But thank you, everybody, for joining.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We got to do it. We got to plan our next. Even though we're taking next weekend off for the Western, but we have to pick a film.
You go ahead, sir. It's your turn.
We've done kind of serious films, and I wanted to pick one that's a little fun, laughter. We do McClintock.
Holy shit! Yes. For a second, I thought you were going to say Blazing Saddles, which funny film, but McClintock has great humor in it too. That is a great pick. 2 weeks away. That's going to be a lot of fun to talk. John,
and plus, it's kind of a film, so it gives us a little bit of time to watch it. It's not a rush.
I know, right? All right. I'm going to end this recording, my friend. See you, folks.